Okay, so in the X1 range, we've got a couple of options. So if you've chosen not to go with the Tech Pack, this in essence is what you're going to have on your control panel. So in here, we've got things like switches and fuses. In the X1N, we'll have the airbag controls, but in the X1, we won't have the airbag controls, but otherwise everything else will be identical. You'll have your water level gauge, and then of course your Manager 30 for the RedArc battery management system. So I'll walk you through some of this, some of the things you need to know about this whole setup. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got our control panel for both, I guess, the X1N or the X1 if you don't have the Tech Pack installed. Will look the same as that as this, with the exception of the airbag controls. So if you've got the X1N and you've got the airbag controls, you'll see here we've got our main pressure gauge, shows the pressure in each bag, and then our two paddle control valves. So in order to turn that on, we turn on our accessories and our spare switch here, and this enables both the pressure gauge and the compressor to work. And we have our two paddle controls, pretty simple. Push up, this will be the left-hand airbag, and it'll inflate the airbag. Push down, it'll lower it. The PSI is virtually irrelevant. The main thing you want to look at with the PSI is you don't go below, let's say 20 PSI. There shouldn't be much of a need for you to have a low pressure in there when you're traveling, but I'll get more into that. It's more to do with the height of the airbag against the level gauge that's shown underneath the actual camper. So you'll see in the wheel arch there's a level gauge there, and you want to have the wheel lined up between the two lines on that level gauge underneath. So it's more about the height, it's not so much to do with the pressure. And you don't want to go above about 90 PSI. There shouldn't be much of a reason for you to go above 90 PSI, but these two pressures can be different. If you've got more load on one side than the other side, then you're going to need more pressure in that airbag to hold it up. This is the whole beauty of airbags, is everything can be adjusted or varied. So it's all about height, it's all about dimensions, it's all about making sure you're not too low. But otherwise, that's the airbag section. If you've got the X1 without the Tech Pack, then the rest of this is the same, and you can basically go through the same kind of fundamentals. So up here we've got our switch panel. We've got a whole bunch of Carling switches lined across the top. You'll see the first 4 switches are for your lights. So you've got lights for the different sections of the camper. You can turn these on and off. Obviously just use them when you need them. You've got your water pump. So same deal, if there's water in the tank, the pump will run and then it will switch itself off with a pressure switch. It's a good idea to get in the habit of turning that water pump on and off just when you use it. If you leave that water pump on and say one of the kids come past and turn a tap on, it'll just run until you run out of water. Likewise, if there was for something to go wrong, or if there was you had the shower connected and the hose got cut or burst off, it'll just run. So it's a good idea to just leave that turned off. If you run out of water, even though these are a high quality pump, there is a risk if it just runs and runs and runs that you might damage it. So yeah, just try and get into the habit of using this water pump. If you're doing the kitchen and the washing up and whatever, doing the dinner and everything, leave it on, but when you finish, flick it off. Fridge. So fridge is probably going to be on all the time. You know, it's not the sort of thing you're going to switch on and off. You can control your fridge from your fridge. This will just be power to the Anderson plug to allow your fridge to work. If you flick that off, obviously everything in your fridge is going to spoil. So probably a good one to mark or put a bit of tape over or something like that to make sure you don't turn off accidentally. Accessories is all to do with your accessories ports, both here and on the back of the camper on the X1N. So if you want to run your awning light or any of your USB chargers and that sort of thing, it's all off this switch. And then, as I said, in the X1N, it's the gauge for your pressure control as well. And then spare is your compressor. In the X1N, in the X1, it's just genuinely a spare. Every now and then they come through and they'll be wired to the tent lights, but generally it's a spare. So you'll see in here, this just unclips, and you'll see behind all these switches are all the fuses. So it's obviously labelled, so they correspond with each switch. So if you find you lose power or something goes wrong, this is where your fuses are. So you got your water. So your water tank's here. Inside here is a little AAA battery. Shouldn't need to change it really ever, but if for some reason this little button doesn't work, it's probably a little battery, just a little screwdriver there can take that cover off. But you just push that button, that'll show you a bar graph as to how much water you have. Gives you plus or minus, I don't know, 10% or so. So it's a reasonably accurate indication. You've got your main power in RCD. So if this is tripped off, both sides would be tripped off if there was a RCD fault. This would be as if there was some sort of issue with the power lead or something in the trailer. This will switch off this, as a safety precaution. If you flick that on and it trips off again straight away, then you have an issue and you need to ring the service department or get onto someone to come and see if we can get it in to get it looked at and sorted out for you. So don't just keep turning it on, it won't fix it. Fundamentally there's a problem. But otherwise, if you've plugged in and you're not getting power, always check the RCD to make sure that's switched on. And then your RedArc Manager 30. So I'll run through some basic sort of functions. There's a lot of information and a lot of data and a lot of videos on the RedArc Manager 30 itself. So you can look at those and reference those to get an idea as to the in-depth understanding of how this all works. Okay, so first up, your main home screen, if you like, is just time and date. You can change all of this, so daylight savings and stuff, you can change all of this just by pushing the side arrow. But otherwise, it's just the home screen that it goes back to. If you find you push some buttons and you get into a screen you're not sure what you've done, you feel like you've probably gone the wrong place, just leave it. It'll time out. Give it about sort of 10-15 seconds. It'll time out and it'll go back to this home screen and you can try again. There's not too much you can do wrong with these things. They're pretty forgiving. So don't be afraid to play around with it and have a look and see how it works. So that's in our home screen. You'll see on the side here you've got this little scroller or little indicator to show you which page you're on. So we're on the top page here on the home screen. If we go down one, it gives us our battery charge screen. So it shows we're at 96% and we're 3 days until flat approximately. So this gives us some information to say that it's actually going down in charge. So we're consuming some power. Obviously we're not plugged in, we're not pulling any power in, and we've got lights and things on at the moment. So this gives us a bit of a rough indication that 3 days until we're out of power. If we hit the right hand key on that screen, we can see some charge logs and some information and stuff like that. There's quite a lot. It's quite a smart little device, so you can get a lot of information out of this. As I said, it's probably one of those things, if you're into all of that, there's plenty of YouTube videos and stuff where you can get right into the actual individual controls and functions of the RedArc controller. So third screen down, if we scroll down again, we see here our input status. So we've got our solar input, 240 input or vehicle input. So at the moment it's showing there's no inputs coming in, we've got no power. But otherwise, if we were plugged into had the solar panel plugged in and say we're plugged into the caravan park, you'd see a graph here showing how much of your power is coming from solar and how much of it's coming from 240. So it gives you an indication as to how much power is coming from where. So fourth screen, we've got our little diagram that sort of shows where the power is coming from and where it's going. So in this case, we can see power is coming out of the battery, 4.8 amps, going up and into our little light bulb here, which would indicate our loads. So that would be things like fridges, pumps, lights, anything you have plugged into the trailer and is using power. So 4.8 coming out into our loads. If we were to have it plugged in, we would have 30 amps, say, coming in. Let's say it's plugged into 240. We'd have 30 amps coming in. 4.8 of it would be going to power all the loads and everything that's in. And then the balance of that, let's say 25 odd amps, would be going to the battery. So it shows in a bit of a diagram where everything's flowing and how much power is being consumed where. So handy little screen to see what's going on. And then the last screen gives us our charging status. So you can see here, we're in a, there's no charge coming in. Our mode at the moment is storage mode, which I'll go through in a second. Our battery voltage is 13 volts, and the temperature, there's a little temperature probe on the battery in the middle of the camper, is 24 degrees. So it basically uses all this data as well as a little shunt to tell us how much power we have left until it runs out of power. So as we sort of hinted towards there, there's some charge modes. So the RedArc, all the RedArc gear runs a storage mode or a touring mode. So when you're on the road and you're traveling, you want to have this set up in touring mode. In essence, all it does is just make it a 3-stage charger where it's dumping as much power as it can into the batteries, so you're topped up as quickly as possible. When it's in this storage mode, this would be when it's parked up at home and you're not using it for about a month or so, and you want it to maintain the batteries. So it puts the batteries through some stresses and helps maintain them so they last a lot longer. So you'd only put it in storage mode if you had no load switched on, and it was purely just to maintain the batteries. So if you're not at home and you are using some of the loads, or if you're at home and you've got your fridge on and you're getting ready to go away, get it out of storage mode. And in order to do that, go down to this bottom screen and hit change mode. If you hit right, you'll see here it comes up with storage or touring. So we're in storage, we want to select touring. And then you see on the right here, it tells you to push right again to confirm. And there you go, we're in touring mode. So now it's converted to basically the mode that's going to give us the most amount of power in the shortest amount of time. To change it back, same deal, bottom screen, the right hand arrow, go up into storage mode, the right hand arrow. It says here disconnect loads and hold confirm for 2 seconds. So it's telling us turn everything off and then push and hold confirm for 2 seconds, and now it's in storage. So you can't accidentally put it into storage, you have to sort of deliberately do it. So for now we'll keep it in touring mode, and that's about it.